Betrachten wir heute mal die Geschicklichkeit von Holger dem Schreiner. Während seine rechte Hand ein Brett sägt, schreibt die linke eine Rechnung. Gleichzeitig öffnet sein Fuß die seitliche Schiebetür seines Citroën Jumpy.
Ein guter Transporter ist wie ein guter Handwerker, ein echter Allrounder. Der Citroën Jumpy schon ab 175 € im Monat. Optional mit Hands-Free Schiebetüren. Jetzt bei den Citroën Business Days.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Chrism, and I'd like to welcome you to this episode about your Kundalini awakening experiences. And as usual, I'm just going to jump right into it. And as we come into the Kundalini, and as the Kundalini comes into us and begins to open us to the new worlds that are around us and living, expressing next to us and in many cases through us simultaneously, there is a blending of the physical world with the many, many non-physical worlds, and even with physical worlds that are beyond our reach, beyond our tactile sensibilities, beyond our understandings. This is typically construed within the ancient teachings as the other world, so to speak. And so as we have the physical world, which contains our five senses and even some of our psychic senses, with the Kundalini, we are completely merged in the other world, and I'm going to put in parentheses, worlds. And this split, this merging between these two zones of appreciation, of understanding, of tactility in a way. This creates when you have two circles and you merge the parameters of each circle with each other, you form an oval or kind of like an eye-shaped area where the two worlds basically merge with each other. And this is where the Kundalini person stands. This is called a Vesika Pisces. And inside of this Vesika Pisces, you are not only just of this world, the physical world, but you're also of all the other worlds that the spiritual realm contains. And I've discussed this in other programs, this is where some of the difficulties of living life in this world can come into. But before I go any further, I do want to echo what Manisha is saying. And what Manisha is saying right now is many thanks to everyone who came to Berlin. The Berlin seminar was an amazing success, and I just want to say thank you to everyone here. And I know Vincent was there, and Manisha was there, and Santara was there, and many, many people were there. And I just want to say a thank you, and I want to get this very clearly that the Berlin seminar was a wonderful success, and I just want to say thank you to everyone, and my appreciation to the Shakti for making that occur, and for Manisha for organizing it and making that occur, and for all the assistance she got from Santara. And then, we had these amazing people there like Vincent, who has called into the show a few times. The Berlin seminar was a ravishing success, and I just want to say thank you to everyone involved. That being said, even at that seminar, I drew a picture on the ink board of a Vesika Pisces where the two worlds were merging. And so within that understanding, it's very important for people to realize that it's not the easiest thing to walk in both worlds at the same time. This covers all areas of social interaction on this world and in the other world as well. The other world will, all of a sudden, you'll have access to a dual reality. And so, when I read these people that are saying, "Oh, we are one, and we're just oneness, and all of us are one," and they have no idea. They have no idea what they're talking about. They may be having a mystical experience, and that mystical experience may be giving them a feeling of oneness, but the reality is plural and singular at the same time. It's not one or the other. It's plural and singular at the same time, and this is something that I think would everybody would do well to remember, especially for Kundalini people. Kundalini people are inside of a plural singularity and a singular plurality at the same time. There is, trying to find the right words here. People have their own views, and I respect them for having their own views. But within a Kundalini context, it is singular and plural and singular at the same time. And so, with that being said, as you walk within that Vesika Pisces, as you walk within the skill sets that come to you via the awakened Kundalini, and as you walk inside of the phenomena that comes with a merged reality. So, for instance, you can see dead people, or you can see spiritual entities. You can see, some of the higher angelics. You can see some of the lower demonics. You can see everything in between those extreme points as well. It's very, very important for you to just find your sense of calmness, find your sense of serenity, and know what is occurring with you. It's a very natural thing. We are not singular dimensional creatures. We are multi-dimensional creatures, and the Kundalini allows us, in many cases, our first taste into multi-dimensional living. It's very important for people to understand that. Multi-dimensional living includes the spiritual realm intermixing with the physical realm, and it's like putting our head through the veil. The veil doesn't go away completely, because if the veil went away completely, we'd have a very hard time staying in the physical. And so, with the veil somewhat altered in its effect upon how we perceive our world, we are allowed to slowly and gently learn what it is to come into contact with spiritual entities that can also perceive and see us, and in many ways communicate with us. And as I've said in many other shows, many other programs here, we do not want to begin a communication with discarnate entities. Not saying that they're all evil, but for the most part, for those that would want to come in contact with a Kundalini awakened person, there's a level of substantial corruption that is typically pushed towards the individual. Not all the time, and I'm not speaking in absolutes, but it happens often enough. It happens often enough that Kundalini people are driven into the psych ward because they're seeing and hearing and interacting with things that nobody else in our society, in the single dimensional society, i.e. the physical society, is seeing or hearing, and so therefore they are diagnosed as schizophrenic or bipolar or a mixture of the two, and they're given drugs to try to push those phenomena away, because our society does not understand that. But at the same time, the Kundalini person is aware, and you are astute, and you are discerning, and so you don't need to contact these other creatures, these other consciousness, simply because out of curiosity, because that's one of the things that can really get you into a lot of trouble. Many of these denizens of the multi-dimensional framework, they are there to test you, and the Kundalini will let them test you. Let them test your fear, let them test your confidence, and let them test your discerning competency within the merged reality. And so it's very important for people to begin to walk in that world and have that world walk within them without having to have a limited understanding communication type of, it's hard to describe some of these things, without feeling the need to communicate with spiritual consciousness the same way that you would communicate with physical consciousness. The rules are different within the spiritual model. The rules are different, not the same way as when you communicate with a person here in the physical, like I'm communicating with you right now, or when Santara is communicating with you, or Brooke, or Elizabeth, or anybody. Okay, it's very important for people to understand that the rules have changed once the Kundalini has activated or awakened within them. And because of that change of rules, and because we are not schooled by our society in the appropriate levels of communication with the merged reality, people get into trouble and they get put into psych wards, or they commit suicide, or they, some of the really, really negative things happen. Not always, not speaking in absolutes here, because some people, this may not be the first time they've had the Kundalini, so they come back into this life with a pre-activated or pre-awakened Kundalini, and so they're able to manage this in a much cleaner way, a much stronger way. For instance, myself, as I was born into this world with pre-activated, pre-awakened Kundalini, well, I've been seeing spiritual entities my whole life, and I know what they're about, and so have other people. Okay, but for those of us that are just entering into the Kundalini for the very first time and coming into this level of expression in a way that is not supported by their current society, it can be a very, very, very slippery slope for some of us. And so what I do like to put out there is to not initiate communication contracts with discarnate entities, because many of those entities are just going to try to be a predator upon that person, an energetic predator or a consciousness predator, or in some way wanting to control a physical being without having to go through the birth process themselves. And so this can create a very, very unfortunate situation for many different people. And so this is one of the main reasons that I put that out there. And right at this moment, I want to introduce a woman who has greatly helped many people in the Kundalini Awakening Systems groups, and she has been the one that put this radio show on the air. And I want to say hello and welcome to Santara. Hello, Santara. How are you?
I'm good. Hello, Chrism. Hello, everybody there listening and in the studios, and when they come into the archives. It's good to be here, Chrism. Can I actually go straight in now and let people know where they can go to make a donation? I didn't do that last week, and I don't want to forget.
Okay. Well, please do.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to tell people that there's a donate button on the Yahoo group, and that doesn't work. So if you go to the Yahoo group, please know that that's not where you make a donation. Come over to this new address. It's www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com, and there's a donate button, and you can make a donation. And, again, we will say every week that there's no pressure on people to make a donation at all. You look after yourself, but if you're in a position where you can, then all donations are very gratefully received. And do know as well, please, that there is no donation that is too small. Every single donation contributes to helping Chrism, to helping this work to continue with Kundalini. And when we make donation to support the work that Chrism does, we are also giving a service for other people, because other people are being supported in their process through the assistance we're giving through our donations. So if you can donate, please, I would invite you to do so. Go to www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. Thank you very much, Chrism. And it's strange not to be talking about a seminar at the moment, isn't it?
Well, it was a beautiful seminar, and I want to say thank you, Satar, for being there, and for Manisha and everybody that came. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I'm very grateful to everybody that showed up.
It was. And thanks to Manisha, it was fantastic and a wonderful venue. And it's really good to know we're going to be doing it again next year. I think Manisha is organising that already. It was great to meet Vincent in person, to meet Jessa in person, to meet people that I've only met on Facebook. And Chrism, thank you so much for coming. It was a privilege to be there, and it was a beautiful experience. So thanks to everyone.
It was literally, I was not planning on going. I'll be straight up with people here. I was looking at it, and the bank account was just not there. I could not afford $1,300 to fly round trip to Berlin and back. And it was just not going to happen. And I was just, I left myself open to it. I left myself open to I didn't schedule anything over it or anything like that. I just left myself open to it. And indeed, the Shakti came through with an individual who really, really wanted to attend this seminar and was willing to donate the airline ticket. And this just was stunning to me. Stunning in how this came about and how this seminar began to form itself. And this is what happens. The seminars form themselves. People are called to this. People, their own Kundalini, and many of the people that came to the seminar had pre-activated Kundalini. Some of them through the quarterly Shaktipots that I give every quarter, which I'm about ready to do in another 7 days. And so it was very, very, very interesting to see how this worked out. And it just really, really accentuates the trust that I always have for the Shakti, but even more so when these things are like laid on the line in the mundane reality. You have to get out, you have to get in the car, you have to get in the plane, you have to get out of the plane, you have to climb the 1,000 flights of stairs, it seems like, in order to get to the place. They don't believe in elevators in Germany. Excuse me. Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, so many old buildings. Yeah, so many old buildings.
But once again, it was a very, 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 very beautiful experience, and I'm appreciative of Manisha and Vincent. Vincent and everybody that came, Sotantar and everyone that showed up. It was very, very beautiful and very, very exciting event, and I look forward to being there next year as well. I would like to.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say about Vincent, if I may. Vincent has created a very, very nice website for the safeties, hasn't he, Chrism? But he has also just recently put up a link for your sacred music in a different way, in a new way that has never been done before. So maybe we could say something about that to people.
I'd love to say that. I'm not quite sure. I mean, as I go over to Facebook right now, and hopefully I'm still being heard. Am I still being heard?
Yes, you are.
Okay, and then I come down. It says it's Kundalini Sacred Music, and it's at https://selfy, and that's SELLFY.com, and /P/ lowercase m and then uppercase AYI / and that is where a person can basically they can purchase the CD there, and I don't want to stay too long on the subjects of money, but that is one place where a person can purchase the Sacred Music CD, and many thanks and much gratitude to Vincent for putting that together. So thank you very much. Now, Did you have any other announcements you'd like to make, Santara?
No, Chrism, but just to say that that's very instant. You know, I've been sending CDs to people and it takes a while. Whereas if you download this, you get it instantly. It's very quick, it's very efficient, and it's just a wonderful new way, new technology, and it's also a way of donation. So people can also, it's the only thing really that's also a donation that goes to support Kundalini Awakening Systems. So I would invite people to please go to the Facebook group, and you'll see Chrism's face, Sacred Music, and just click on that and get the sacred music, because to be honest with you, it is a wonderful thing to have in your home. It's a wonderful thing to be able to play for meditation, for all kinds of, it's just wonderful. So I just would like to encourage everybody to do it.
Because of Vincent and this ability to spread this around, I am going to be making new CDs and uploading that onto that site as well. Yeah. And but I don't want to sound like those radio stations that are constantly, asking for donations. No offense.
Well, we're not, Chrism. In fairness, we're not. We rarely mention the CD.
But I would like to ask the people in the chat room, Manisha, Mary Jean, Vincent, Yassine, Alana Seeker, are you hearing this? Or are we talking to the air, as sometimes occurs with Blog Talk Radio? So if you could type into your happy little machines whether or not you're hearing this, it would be much appreciated. And Mary Jean is typing. She is so fast. Thank you, Mary Jean, and thank you anybody else that would feel like typing Mary Jean, Manisha, and they're saying, yes, the sound is good. Oh, my gosh. Boy, that's really nice. Well, then I want to dive right back into this. Now, when you're inside of the Vasika Pisces, there are great levels of unknowingness. You don't know how to walk in this world, and you're not always tuned in to some old guy with a beard named Chrism that is saying, this is how you walk in this. You don't know what to do, and you don't know how to do anything really, and it can be a very, very frightening experience. And this comes down to a level of trust. Many, many people have trusted the Kundalini. Instead of going into fear, they just kind of go like, "Whoa, well, this is new. How? Look at all these creatures. Look at this. Look at these beautiful lights. Look at this. Listen to this amazing music, and how all of this is coming into my perception right now. And this should not be happening." And yet it is happening, and this should not be allowed by the laws of physics, and yet this is happening. I know that I'm not crazy. I know that this is occurring, and yet nobody in my family, nobody in my friends, nobody at work, nobody else can experience what is happening to me right now. Therefore, how to move forward within this context. And it all goes down to a matter of trust. It is all about trust, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to bring someone on board right now who can talk about trust, I think. And hello, Brooke. How are you today?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. How do you feel about the insertion of trust into a Kundalini format? I mean, you yourself, you have the Kundalini, and you've had some fairly strong, unexplainable experiences with it. How do you feel about trust and its expression within the Kundalini context?
I don't really know if I understand what you're asking. I mean, trust in and of itself.
Let me see if I can simplify it for you. What is your experience of trust within your Kundalini experience?
It's one of the major requirements, I would say, for moving forward or receiving, more direction or more of the connection with the Shakti. So,
what has your experience? How have you had to have that? How has your experience been with that? From the time you left PA from the time you were in Pennsylvania and the levels of, say, the fragmentation. If we discussed on this program before that you experienced the levels of fragmentation, what happened to you to bring you out into California and out, into the teachings of a Kundalini awakened teacher?
Well, what happened there specifically was I was given specific instructions about you, about that whole thing. And what's interesting about this whole trust piece is that you may receive that phenomena or that divine instruction or intervention, really, and then it sort of goes away, and you're all of a sudden soft and down right into your mundane life again, and you have to meet those areas with the trust and remember that you are there to be trusting and to trust, follow through, even in spite of all this stuff that comes up for you to sort of meet and, these tests and things along the way. So
tell the people about some of these tests that come along the way that encourage a person to trust.
I mean, I can't really think of any specifics at the moment, but I just know that.
Let me insert a few things here. A person will be given challenges that have no solution. There is no viable first world, i.e. mundane world, solution to the challenge or the problem that is presenting itself. And the only recourse that a person will have are strong levels of trust. Is this...
Yeah, and also, when none of it makes sense on paper, when you look at it, how we used to, when we were making big decisions, or you get out your pros and cons list. Well, that doesn't work with the Kundalini at all. I mean, that just needs to go right out the window. There's no analyzing. There's no negotiation. There's no real deciding what, it's not linear like that. It's not going to work like that. The only way through it is to surrender and trust. And, yeah, that's difficult because your mind wants to,
it wants to plan and organize.
It wants to know. It wants to know the facts and know that everything is going to work out. And, and it's just not ever going to be like that. No, it's not.
And how has it been in your experience? That everybody's got different experiences within this same context. I know that Santara and Elizabeth and people have different experiences, and yet they all kind of run around the same type of teaching. What have your experiences been?
Well, I think it's been beautiful and wonderful and challenging all at the same time. So it's been difficult and beautiful and wonderful all in one. I mean, there's constant pushing to release into greater levels of consciousness, of understanding, constant. So you can either look at that as being a beautiful, wonderful thing, or you can look at it as being very hard and difficult. And there are times where I see it both ways, to be honest.
Right. How has it pushed you beyond the accepted formats of social engagement within the first world, the mundane world? How has the merged worlds changed the way you would interact with individuals on the mundane level? Well,
right now I'm in such a isolated situation here, so I really don't really know how to answer that, to be honest. I feel like most of my mundane interaction it's very limited. So
yeah, it's very limited.
That's one way.
Go ahead.
Well, that's one way she's done that, is she's sort of pushed all that back for me. There's work that I'm doing that's very specific at this time right now that doesn't involve a lot of that.
Yeah, and she being the sacred mother, the sacred feminine aspect of the Kundalini.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your insights and your information with the many people that can benefit from it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we're going to put you into the blue, and I'm going to bring up Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez, and And Elizabeth, I look forward to your comments about this as well. What do you, or what does Laranya, your Kundalini, how is this accepted? What do you do? What have you done? And how do you find the ways to traverse both worlds at the same time within your Kundalini?
Well, hi, Chrism.
Hi.
This week, it's not surprising, but it kind of correlates with what I've been going through with her this week and what what the teaching has been. It started with, I was just doing my meditations and very much focusing on the safety of inner peace and serenity and trying to figure out how to get more quickly into that place where I can let things go easier, that place where things don't bother you and you can just, somebody cuts you off in traffic and you can just really return immediately to that place of inner peace. So I've been working on that. And last night I went in to do my meditation before bed, and I went into my meditation room and I opened the door and it was really pitch dark in there. And as I walked into this most beautiful, like you were talking about, that we can go into these worlds, but the whole room was this field of just royal blue, the most beautiful, iridescent, calming blue color. And I just stood there, and I expected it to dissipate immediately, just as soon as my eye focused to the dark. I thought it would go away, and it just stayed. And so I just stood there. It felt so good. And then right up at the top of this field of blue came like a vesica shape or egg-shaped scarlet red color, just really bright. And I just stood looking at it. And then what she said, what came to me was just, you need to bring yourself further into surrender. Lead with your heart. Let your ego go with whatever unfolds. And what she literally said to me, and what I kept hearing, was meet the divine. Meet the divine within you. And with any situation like that, go inside and to the place where you meet the divine. Let the divine guide you through love, mercy, and grace. And I thought, I'm thinking easier said than done. But then today, someone, in fact, did cut me off in traffic. And then right immediately after, almost rear-ended me. I could see in my rearview mirror coming right up on me. And I felt, I just kind of tried to go to that place because I instantly was going to react. And not only did I find that place, but then after, that happened and I was able to continue driving, I literally felt like, if I even, not with my eyes closed, but if I visualize inside of me being that field of blue, it instantly calms me down. And it's like where I meet the divinity within me. It helps me to just then think of that beautiful blue field as being inside of me, where I just and it actually instantly calmed me down. And I've just felt really peaceful all day after that meditation last night. And I've also just all day had a really lovely feeling in my heart, in my back, around my heart chakra. It just felt really soothing. And
that color,
and so I think
that color of blue would be the sacred male.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Shiva, as the Hindu people would qualify it, or the Jesus, or the Christ force, as the Christians might identify with it. And I want to bring people's attention, because listening to you, Elizabeth, had brought a book to mind. The book is called 2150, 2150. And that is the title of the book, and I forget the author's name. I read it about 1,000 years ago, it seems, and it is a new way of approaching society. I mean, many people use that book as a template to create their own society in a little microcosm of this world, and to be able to walk within the merged realities like you're talking about, Elizabeth. And I really like your example of being in traffic and having somebody cut you off and almost rear end you, and then bringing that blue sacred male quality into the equation, and basically merging the two worlds around you within a mundane environment. That's very, very important, Elizabeth. And that's a great example of what I'm talking about. But this book also does that, but in a greater way. I mean, it merges people in a way of freedom from social constraints in such a way that allows people to really expand within their Kundalini and expand within the new understandings. Have you read that book, Elizabeth?
No, but I'm going to. I'm writing it down as you're saying.
Yeah, 2150, and I recommend it for all Kundalini awakened people or activated people, because it really begins to describe a society that is geared very, very differently than ours, and it's a society that allows us to. Mary Jean says, Tia Alexander. It may be. I know it's a female author, Mary Jean, and Mary Jean is suggesting that it might be Thea, Tia Alexander, Alexander. But the title of the book is 2150. You can't really get around that. That is the title of the book. And I strongly recommend it for everybody. My Shakti just put it into my head.
Nice.
And it takes out all the sexual problems that we have in our society about, what is appropriate around that. And it really frees up that whole area, which believe it or not, is a huge level of blockage within the Western societies. It takes out that. It takes out the crime issue, and it really allows the criminal element to deal with itself the way the criminal element wants to deal with itself. And it's very, very it's very beautiful. And it looks like Centaura just Googled it. So
nice.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great book, and it's also a great example like yours, Elizabeth, and how we walk within both worlds. And as we come back to what Brooke was saying about, how this level of trust is so important, to walk in both worlds, trust is, as Brooke mentioned, is an absolute. It is an absolute necessity, because your five senses, or even your six senses, will not be able to cover everything that's being presented to you as an individual. Would you agree with that, Elizabeth?
Oh my gosh.
And as you begin to walk in these two worlds, trust is the new eyesight. Trust is the new tactility or touch. Trust is the new hearing. Trust is in and of itself a sensory level of input that your Kundalini will give to you. And so I just, that is a very, very important quality. But while I have you on the microphone here, Elizabeth, I would like you to relate anything that your Kundalini, and as many of us know, your Kundalini has come to you in the form of a spider consciousness. Not a common thing, but I'd like to hear her take on this, or anything else that she would like to insert into this conversation.
I think another thing I'm getting is just, it might not, when you're fully trusting, taking note, being as aware as you can, and meeting that divine place. Things might occur to you later, your ego later on, that while you're trusting and doing and, things, your ego doesn't always automatically get it, So you definitely need to trust and then allow for some of that understanding on many different levels to come at different times, and just to be aware of that later on that day, all of a sudden you might get some information or some understanding about something that occurred earlier that you just didn't understand, or later that week, something that was so uncomfortable for you, your ego, you don't understand, why is that happening? Why is it happening? Well, maybe an entire time doesn't work the same way as, I guess, what she's saying, that you might later, like a week later, all of a sudden realize.
She's bringing up a very good point. And sometimes the shock and awe value of behaviors or phenomena that can influence behaviors can be so strong and so difficult for the current psychology to accept that it's just a matter of time for that processing to take place. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
And within that processing, people need to trust, because it's so difficult sometimes. Like a person can have a wave of entities come over them and totally begin to affect the way they would respond in a natural environment. And that wave can be so detrimental, it can be so corruptive and corrosive that they just need to trust that their trust in the Shakti will be able to overcome that level of corruption, or that wave of uncertainty, or that wave of anxiety or fear. They need to just trust in the Shakti, trust in the Shiva, trust in the Kundalini. Trust in the Kundalini, and let the processing time that doesn't happen in the multi-world, but definitely needs to happen in the singular world, or the mundane world, the first world. So that's a good teaching, and I want to say thank you, Elizabeth, for your teachings, and for Laranya's teachings here as well with regards to this. And is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
I think that's it. It's just about the layers of things going on that aren't necessary, that you just have to trust, because your ego has no idea and cannot break down the layers of things that are going on. So you really can't sit there and try to figure it out, in other words.
You can't analyze it, and that's what people try to do. Mm-hmm. They turn on that analyzer machine inside their head, and it just they just can't get it, and because they can't get it, they consider themselves either failing at discernment, or they consider the information itself as to be mistaken or a lie, or things of that nature. And so
or they rush to take a medication or something to stop something,
or they believe or they believe in the ego. They just, they fall back onto what they've always known, which has been the ego, and they begin to not trust the divine influence that's coming through, because the phenomena is just so far outside of their reference point. I want to thank you, Elizabeth and Laranya, for giving people this teaching on this program today. And I'm going to put you in the blue. And I'm going to pull up Santara. And Santara, what do you have to say about this?
Well, the analyzer machine is a good one, Chrism. I know that if I didn't trust, I'd be on very shaky ground, I mean, especially when, the five senses is on very shaky ground, trying to make sense of things. And so I think trust creates a solid platform for me. When I'm in that place of just not understanding, or in a place where I'm experiencing things that I just don't really understand, or it's beyond, as you said earlier, the law of physics. Well, then trust enables me to be solid within the context of that. Otherwise, I think I would go nuts. I would go nuts.
Yeah. Well, I think
trust
it would
is
be
crucial.
easy for people. It's very easy for people to feel like they're going crazy within the Kundalini, for sure.
Yeah. So it's essentially, it does create a solid platform for me, Chrism, as I go through my process, trust.
Well, now I have to ask you, off subject here. Are you hearing my chair? Is my chair making noise?
No, I'm not. No,
Oh,
did you oil it?
No, I didn't, but it's not making noise, so thank you. All right,
No,
I'm going to put
no, it's not. No.
into the. Thank you, Santara, for your input with this.
Okay.
So there you have it, folks. I mean, you've heard from a few different people now with regards to this, and I do want to promote that book, 2150, by, I guess, Tia Alexander, and read it within a Kundalini context, i.e., put yourself into the Kundalini world that you're in already, if you're activated or awakened, and read that book and the different levels of society that come forward, the different levels of understanding about love, about sex, about crime, about how we treat each other based upon Edwardian or Victorian conceptual manifestations. And by that I mean the Victorians, any sign of nudity is wrong. It's just wrong. And same with the Edwardian, any sign, you always got to keep your clothes on. Whereas the Native Americans in this country and in Native peoples in other countries, clothing's not such a big deal. Not such a big deal. And yet it is with us. Okay. Greed and the acquisition of things and property is a big deal in the Western technological societies, and yet not such a big deal in the Native American or other Native people's consciousness. And so it's very, very important for us to begin to shift our awareness away from a line of thinking and a line of understanding that embraces Victorianism and Edwardianism within the society, and to open ourselves more to trusting what the Kundalini is showing us, trusting what we are doing in our activities that we're compelled to do within the Kundalini context. And really just letting the life that you're living right now be strongly influenced by the Kundalini within you as she expresses herself and the sacred male expresses himself within you and through you, and trusting what is happening, trusting that there is a reason that it is happening. Don't go into fear. Don't go into panic. Don't go into these modes of expression that are there because our ego is based on survival, and those methods were good in our earlier childhood. They helped us. They helped us to survive. They helped us to maintain a level of conscious awareness within our society. But now they are no longer needed. These are skill sets that do not serve the Kundalini awakened person any longer, because the Shakti will look at your levels of surrender, levels of survival, and she will begin to improve on your levels of survivability. She will give you the information that you need in order to make the best decision possible. This is what I have been given to say to you this day in this program, that as you walk in the multidimensional world, and as this multidimensional world is forced upon you, you must trust the Kundalini. And I'm going to bring Vincent into this conversation right here, even though he's not on the phone. Vincent, has, as we know from the last few shows, has had a very, very significant level of entity interference in his life. And this entity interference has literally, for a while, sculpted his ability to live in the Western technological societies, and yet he's had to make adjustments with it. He's had to tie his wrists to his belt so that the entities that are trying to dominate his world aren't allowed to hurt him or to physically abuse him the way they would. And he showed me at the seminar. He showed me, it's like, what would happen if he unties his wrists? And of course, the entities try to damage him, in his face and in his skull in other ways. And so we make allowances, we make changes in our lifestyle that allow us to have the Kundalini and to walk in the multidimensional worlds as we are living at the same time in the first world, the mundane world, the physical world. And this is a great example. Vincent is a wonderful example of how you can do this and do this in a positive format. Now, I have to say that the Vincent that came out of the seminar is very different from the Vincent that came in. And this is a level of positivity. This is a level of Shakti influence, helping him, healing him, and working with him as he goes through the various, levels of Kundalini awakening and activation that he is going through right now. And I can say the same thing about many of the other people there. But even if you can't make it to a seminar, you don't live. I don't know anybody that's doing this work that I'm doing, and it bothers the heck out of me. But at least you can hear this on this radio program. Those of you that have made themselves available to this program, you can understand that this sacred information is coming to you right now. You can live in the multi-world and you can live in the singular world at the same time. You can become two that are one and the one that is two as a singular equation. A singular equation of these sacred ancients and how they were able to understand and manifest their lives within the singular and dual merged worlds. Okay, all right. Now, read that book, 2150. Read that book, 2150, and apply it to your Kundalini awakening situation. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Santara on. And hi, Santara.
Hi, Chrism.
Do we have any questions for this program today?
Yes, we do. We haven't as many as normal, but I have a few. The first one that was sent to my inbox is, does sleep disorder related to karma? So I suppose in English, is sleep disorder related to karma?
Well, karma can represent any kind of an equation within or without the Kundalini. So yeah, you can have sleep disorder as a karmic constituent, but it's not a guarantee. Just because you're meeting karma doesn't mean you have to have a sleep disorder. I think the person is confusing a Kundalini-induced sleep disorder with a karmic disorder, and sometimes the Kundalini will just rob you of your normal sleep period, and that is just as the way it is. And if you're drinking caffeine to try to restore your energetic balance, or if you're doing some sort of a stimulant in order to ensure your level of awake consciousness in this world, well, you're missing the point. Most of the time, when Kundalini takes away your levels of sleep, it's also replacing levels of energy within your body that will allow you to work your normal routine without, say 8 hours of sleep. Maybe you only need 6 now. And if you only need 6 typically, then maybe you only need 4 now. And, typically people, through their ego, will resist these types of sleep, these types of sleep cycle expressions. The Kundalini will give you sleep cycle adjustments that will not conform to your ego expectations. And typically people will see that as wrong. And I think this person here is misinterpreting a karmic valuation with a Kundalini manifestation upon their sleep cycle. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. Can you ask Chrism, why does he give the Shaktipat at those particular times of the year? Does it really matter what is happening with the sun and the seasons?
Oh, yes. It's a very, very sacred element. And frankly, I didn't choose that. That got chosen for me by my Kundalini. There's an extreme level of sacred mathematics that occurs with the solstice and the equinox and the application of scatter fields and the initiation of a 7-day Shaktipat sequence. And then also with the 9 days after the 7-day Shaktipat sequence, there's an extreme level of sacred mathematics that is involved with that. That's why it is so important for people to sign up before I give the scatter fields. People right now are trying to get involved with that, and they just can't because the mathematics don't line up. Am I still being heard here? Hello?
Yes, Chrism, I can hear you.
Good. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's exactly what happens with regards to the scatter fields and the Shaktipat. The position of the sun and the moon, the rotation of the earth, the seasons of the earth have a very, very significant impact on the Kundalini that is given to those who are composed of the earth, if you understand what I'm saying. So that's why it does it. Now, what I've noticed is, and I was commenting on this with people that I've met over this past week, the scatter fields are of me. They are of Chrism. They are one of about 17 to 21 trillion possible Chrisms that are being given. And so when I assign the scatter field, it sometimes has more phenomena associated with it than the actual Shaktipat, because the Shaktipat itself is governed by the individual's practice of the safeties. And so if an individual is practicing the safeties twice a day, as I like them to do, well, then that level of Shaktipat will come to them. But the application of the scatter field is strictly through the exalted consciousness of every cell in the awakened person's body. So in the Kundalini, so let's just say I know that Elizabeth and Brooke and Joey, Joey's called in. So Elizabeth, Brooke, and Joey and yourself, Santara, are in the Shaktipat. And you might ask Dobby 100 to reset his or her system on the chat room. They're not able to hear anything. But as the scatter field was given to Brooke and to Joey, to Elizabeth, and to Santara, and other people on the chat room as well, that is a cellular consciousness that represents a potential Chrism. And so that is also an awakened Chrism person. Okay? Each cell has the ability genetically to form an entire human being. The chromosomal function and the telomeric function of the genetics within the cell have the ability to form an entire human being. And you're going to hear a phone ringing, and I apologize for that. And so using that person that is represented by that cell, the Shakti in me scatters that cell over to the individual, to a Brooke or a Joey or Elizabeth or Santara. and places it 5 feet above the left shoulder as a kind of like a. To me, I see it as a very luminous silver sun that is over that person's left shoulder about 5 feet, and then I watch a luminous filament of that sun come down and attach itself to one of 3 vertebrae within the person's tailbone. And as it wraps around that vertebra, that person is now within the visual range and the governing range of the Shakti Kundalini within that scattered cellular consciousness. And this has a lot to do with the sun and the moon and the earth and the seasons between the seasons. There are 8 seasons, really. It's not just summer, winter, fall, and spring. It's also the seasons within the seasons. So it's the merged seasons of between summer and fall, which is where we are right now in the Northern Hemisphere. But it also has to do with the sacred mathematics that govern a day as well. You have the daytime and you have the nighttime, but you also have the 4 quadrants of the daytime and the nighttime. So you have the daytime, you have the dawn, you have the dusk, and you have the nighttime. And so all of these factors are placed into a mathematic formula that the sacred Kundalini administers to those who are receiving the Shaktipat and the scatter field. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. The second part of the question was to ask you about the scatter field, so you've already answered that.
I swear. And if you ask me to remember what I just said right now, it's not going to happen. That came straight from Kundalini.
Oh, that was just incredibly. I mean, I've heard you speak about it before, and that was beautiful, and that was so knitted in beautifully. Thank you. I'm going to listen to that again.
Thank you to the
okay,
Shakti.
so the next, the Shakti. Thank you, Kundalini. Okay, so the next question is, I used to dream profusely, but since my activation, I never ever dream, and I miss it. And astral traveling, will this ever happen again?
Yes. When you have the activation, sometimes your consciousness is grounded in a way that it is not used to being grounded. You're still going astral, you're still going out there, but you're being trained, you're being adjusted, you're being transformed in ways that the conscious human mind cannot conceive, cannot hold, cannot understand. And in order to keep people out of fear-based mechanisms that would be triggered by an inability to understand, an inability to process or analyze, the Kundalini just basically wipes it out of your ego-oriented memory bank. And so it's very important for you to understand that you're still traveling, you're still dreaming, but you're being trained in a very, very, very potent, a very powerful level of information that goes far outside of what your ego consciousness can currently metabolize. And so she takes you away from that for a time. You'll be able to dream, you'll be able to go out of body in a conscious sense, if that's something that you've been doing, but not currently and not for a little bit of time. You need to give yourself time and patience to trust what the Kundalini is doing with you, and to trust the Sacred Mother and Sacred Father as they make their transformation apparent within you and appreciable by you. Right now, you can't appreciate it because it's just beyond your reference points. But as that matures, and as you mature within your trust, so will you be able to understand what is happening. It's very, very, very important. You know, I'm constantly telling my students, trust. You must trust the Kundalini. And then, you know, if you're like Brooke and you're receiving, you know, instructions straight from the teacher, in person, from the teacher, and I'm saying, Brooke, you got to trust. Well, it's not the easiest thing to do, and I'm going to bring her on to let her comment to that. What do you think about that, Brooke? Am I?
I agree with you. because, it'll look one way, and to you and where you are sitting, like for me, it'll look one way, and then with you, obviously, it's the Kundalini, it's something totally different, and you just can't analyze, as we've been saying. You can't try and work it out from a physical standpoint. You just have to trust. I know this sounds so basic, but when you're inside of that,
it's hard.
It's hard. It really is.
It can be excruciating.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It can be excruciating because you're not just dealing with, your own programming as a child and all of that. You're dealing with societal programming. You're dealing with culture, too, so you're moving through so much that just is saying, and then you have the entities on top of that is just saying, no, this can't be, or you're going to end up without, or, hurt, or, none of these other things apply when you're trusting. You can't be defensive. You can't protect yourself. You don't need any of those things anymore. You have to trust. And, we were taught to protect ourselves or, defend that which we think is right and all of that, So, no, all of these things have to go. It's hard.
Exactly. And it is hard. And thank you, Brooke. Appreciate your input on that. And stay tuned with this. Would you please? I might have some more comments for you to make, okay?
Staying tuned.
Thank you. And tell me, Santara, what do you have to say about that as well?
About trust, Chrism? Well, I don't have anything to say just now because I'm in the middle of something here. Sorry. What
are you doing? Never mind.
I'm organizing the questions. I did hear Brooke saying. I did like Brooke what she said about you can't protect and you can't defend when you're trusting, and how much we want to protect ourselves. And I think I heard that, and that is so true. That is
now,
so
can
true,
you ask
and
the question again?
that's not easy.
Can you ask the question again?
Oh yeah, where is it? This was the question, wasn't it, about dreaming? Was that the question?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So you must.
I used to dream profusely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead and organize. The dreaming will return. The dreaming will return, but as I found out early on in my process, let me just give you an example, and I think I've used it here before, but it pertains. I did it. I was fairly good at astral projection pre-activation of the Kundalini. I could do it. I could just go. I never did. I never tried for the separation sequence. I would always go through the separation sequence and then wake up floating above my body, and then I would be able to go somewhere, wherever I wanted to go. Or I was using the HemiSync programs that Robert Monroe put out there. And in the daytime, I would very, very easily slip out of the body and go to wherever I wanted to go. Sometimes I would just fly above the landscape. It was very, very much enjoyable. But as the activation permeated my system, I found myself grounded, just like this individual. And you just need to wait a little bit of time, and time as I think Elizabeth suggested is not it's not the same outside of the physical as it is within the physical. Time is a construct of the physical, really. And so you just want to have a bit of patience as you go through this, so that you can realize that the changes have been made, and you will indeed begin to remember your dreams again and go astral, go out of body again, as I did early in my process. If I was getting bothered by what do they call by entities, sexual feeders or something of that nature, I'd astral project on purpose, with intent, with a bit of irritation, which is not something you could normally do within an astral projection sequence. If you have irritation, well, then you're not likely to leave the body. But with the Kundalini imbued levels of astral projection, you can go with irritation, and you can go straight to where you want to go. and you can deliver whatever message that you need to deliver to those entities to keep them away from you. So there is that. And over, sometime.
Thank you, Chrism. This is the last one of the ones that came into the inbox. It says, I had an experience 4 months ago that I think was a Kundalini activation, and since then I have buzzing in my ears. I read on the group, the Facebook group, I think, that it was normal in a Kundalini context. Sometimes there is a high-pitched sound, and I find it very difficult.
Yeah,
There's
the
high-pitched
statement, yeah. The high-pitched sound can be disconcerting, and the buzzing shouldn't be. But if you just trust what is occurring to you, trust that what you're hearing is you're hearing the na'ad, or the buzzing sound would be that could also be representative of the Kundalini as the buzzing of bees, but also the chirping of crickets and the different manifestations of sound within the Kundalini context. And I'm going to go over to Elizabeth right now. And Elizabeth, have you also had this experience with the buzzing and the high pitched sound frequencies?
Yes, I have, Chrism. All of the above. But I was going to tell you about. I had one that was even more hard to handle than the high pitched sound. I had for a period of time, and I think it was just a couple of months, but it was really hard that every time I would turn my head in either direction, just even little increments, because it bothered me so much, I actually tested it by, turning it in little tiny increments. And it was like a churning metallic sound. It drove me nuts, and then it just went away, and it's never come back. So, but that was a tough one. Just like every little bit that you turn your head, and it's got this cranking metallic sound. But I think my favorite is the temple or church bells when they're all ringing at once. That's the one I love the most. That's the least irritating.
Yeah, we had those in Germany in the at the seminar. They had the bells that would go off like every certain amount of time, and I can understand why I never really appreciated church, especially as I'm trying to sleep and they come on with those bells, and it's just like, oh my God. At least you could find bells that were like somewhat tuned harmonically to each other, but no, that's not the case. But yeah, well, thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, I guess I'm just not churchy oriented type of person. Okay, we have a few people coming onto the group here, and they're wanting some dream interpretations. I think Dobby, if you could stop typing because it's really hard to find where I'm at with this. Thank you. And Yassine is saying, hello, I would like if you would interpret a dream for me. I had a dream that I was in prison and I was saying bye-bye to everyone. I've always had dreams of prison, but this dream was different. I was never to return. The prison is really the physical body, the physical world. That is as close to a prison as you can get. Here you are. You're amazingly wide and varied information. How do I say it? The soul without a body has like a gazillion senses, and yet when you come into the body, you are limited to 5, sometimes 6. And you were just saying goodbye to everyone that you knew outside of the body, and here you come into this body that is in a sense like a prison. And so you're going through it, and you're going through the human experience, which means that typically you don't get just to leave just because you die. You go into the matrix of karma, and the karma chooses the karma based upon your response to the karma that you had previously. Well, this current karma is being made for you right now, and you will not get to return the same way as you left. You will have the human experience, and you will go through the entire human experience as a level of consciousness evolution. And as you go through this evolution, when you come out of it, the other side, you won't be recognizable to, parts of you will for sure, but you will have changed to such a degree that you will have evolved through a space of commonality with some of the levels of consciousness that you said goodbye to in the first place. And that is, you will never return to the same person you were. And I'm going to say over with that. And then Dobby has said, I have a question. I have had a Kundalini activation. I'm undergoing transformation. When meditating, I do receive visions what I should do. 1, the first vision was I'm climbing a mountain. On top of the mountain, there was a cave. I go inside the cave. And go inside the cave, and there is a pool of blood, and a beautiful woman is taking a birth, and she asks me to join her. I freak out and wake up from the vision. The blood being the Shakti, and the birth process being you. She's basically giving birth to you at the top of the mountain. Being at the top of the mountain, you're climbing the mountain, and it's basically the mountain is the refinement process that a person goes through in order to get to the Kundalini. And as she gives birth to you, because you've reached that top of the mountain, well, boom, there you are. Now, it's only and this is a good example of what I was talking about earlier with inside of the Vesica Pisces, your ego mind or your ego consciousness is not going to understand the symbolism that the Kundalini gives to you. And it will freak out and it will wake up. And this is a very, very good example of that. And let's see, in a different vision, she takes a dip inside a pool of blood. She asks me to have sex with her in the pool. And once again, that is fine. That is sacred sex. That is not a problem, and nothing for you to be concerned with. Okay. And let's see, I freak out and I guess you cannot get out of the vision. And that's okay too, because you're not going to be out of the vision. If you're inside of an activation and you're being transformed, you don't get to leave. Your ego personality is going to want to leave, but you don't get to leave. Kundalini is not something you just get to turn off. It's there for the rest of your life, and typically there in a very, very positive way. You just have to stop trying to interpret Kundalini communication and symbolism through the eyes of the programmed societally and culturally programmed ego. Okay? And please, the next question, Centaur, if you would.
Chrism, you missed one actually as well. Same guy, Dobby, says the second one, he walked into a room and the same woman gave him a contract with a feather pen to sign. He can't read the contract. He freaks out again and wakes up.
The contract. Yeah.
Yeah. And he can't read it, so, of course he can't.
Yeah, so I would just skip that one. That one, don't be signing any contract. Kundalini does not require a contract. Kundalini does not require a contract unless it's a contract of surrender. Now, I have given people contracts of surrendering contracts. Like I've given one to you, right, Centaura?
Yep, you have some time ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a long time ago. And basically it's a tool of surrender is all it is. This one could be seen to be that way, but right now as I look into that, and there's another one. I find myself doing an Indian ceremony with the same woman. Yeah. Now, if this woman,
it's the same woman all the time, isn't it? In the
so I'd have to say, if it were me, Dobby's freaking out quite a bit. I would start looking at it differently and maybe see. Ask your Kundalini right now, Dabi, as you're sitting there listening to this program. Ask your Kundalini right now if the woman in the vision is the Shakti Kundalini, and see what comes to you. Or you can maybe let us know later on as you do that what your answer is. And go ahead with your next question, Santara.
Okay, this question is from the group Chrism, and it's the only one that I've gathered actually. So it says, I just want to ask if sex is an obstacle in self-realization. I am a regular meditator, and all I can say so far is that this world seems like an illusion to me, and I feel as if everyone is nothing but energy balls. I am not able to calm sexual urge at times, though the frequency of sex has declined. But still my goal is to activate my Kundalini and want the serpent to go all the way up my chakras and to know the divine truth. So is sex an obstacle in it? Please help me.
No. Sex is not an obstacle to enlightenment. It can actually be a very, very, very strong proponent of enlightenment. If you can have a sexual experience with a person who is similarly choose my words here, similarly configured, then that can be a very, very strong component of an enlightenment process. Sex is very, very important. Just look at Tantra. Tantra is all about that. If you're having tantric sexual communication with another person, you're actually in the process of pursuing an enlightenment equation, actively pursuing an enlightenment equation. Here's the deal. Kundalini is the sexual drive and the sexual interest is composed of Kundalini energetic expression. And as a person engages a sexual activity with with a mantra or with an understanding that this sexual act is beyond the love of a mundane sense, but is in fact merging into a love of the divine sense. Well, this in and of itself becomes a great opportunity for both people within that equation to engage in levels of enlightenment that would not have occurred if they were just meditating or they were, doing any other kind of a mundane form of spiritual practice designed to actuate Kundalini awakening. Tantra is very, very effective in this way. However, the human consciousness has infected Tantra like a disease. Human consciousness based upon cultural ideation or based upon cultural mannerisms or based upon cultural taboos. Well, that limits the frequency that Tantra can engage in, and that brings upon levels of guilt, levels of secrecy, levels of denial that the sexual activity within a tantric context can really operate well within, and so people tend to lose the ability to engage tantrically towards an enlightenment equation, that it was originally designed to encompass. And so sex is great for an enlightenment exploration, but you need to do it within very, 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 I don't like to say the word strict, but I'm going to go ahead and say the word strict understandings of Kundalini, the merging of the sacred male and the sacred male, and mirroring that merging of sacred male, sacred female within the tantric activity. And so you don't want to have any guilt about what you're doing. You want to erase the guilt from your sexual activity. You want to erase the secrecy from your sexual activity. You want to erase levels of blockage that cultural ideation has inserted into the tantric equation. And from there, the person can have a very, very strong level of enlightenment come into them. Now, it's not a guarantee. Just because you're practicing Tantra and say you're practicing Tantra correctly, it is not a guarantee that the Kundalini will come to you based upon that practice. But it is another avenue. It is another doorway, just like meditation, just like Shaktipat, just like visions, just like astral projection, just like any of the other many pathways up the refinement mountain to the activation or awakening of the Kundalini. Sexual practices geared upon the lines of love and respect and openness and understanding and reverence towards the divine can indeed be an activation into the enlightenment equation. Over. Oops. Let's see. There you go. Hello?
Oh, that was me. Sorry, we had somebody listening. Okay, there's a question for you there from Beatrice on the chat room.
Oh, I see.
Do you want me to
I have
read
another question. When we go into the sleep at night, is it possible that our soul is working on a different realm of existence that would help us in our Kundalini process? Yes, I think that's just another way of saying what I said earlier. So yes, maybe a better way, Beatrice. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now.
So no more questions, Chrism. No more. They're done now.
Okay. All right. Very good. And I'll go ahead and put that here, and I'm going to ask. Let's see. And Brooke, how did that last question feel to you?
You know what? I'm sorry. I got pulled away from the phone, so I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's all right. It's all right. No worries. No worries.
Oh, wait a minute. Was this about the Tantra? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello?
Oh, I can't. Say again. Please repeat.
Was it about the Tantra?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember what the question. I don't remember the exact question.
No. That's okay. Now I will go up to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, how do you and Lorania feel about that question? That last question.
I also got pulled away from I'm so sorry. I heard the tail end of it with the Tantra.
Just as well, I guess.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. Putting you in the blue.
Gosh.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, definitely. Tantra is another pathway, and if you read that book 2150, they in that society, that fictional society, they've gotten rid of a lot of the guilt. They've gotten rid of the ownership. They've gotten rid of the many different psychological barriers that our society in the technological West has placed in front of an enlightenment equation. And and it goes right back to Victorianism. It goes right back to the Edwardian psychological processes that set in motion very, very specific levels of blockage and shame within the societies about sexual freedom or sexual responsibility, or the use of the sexual equation towards an enlightenment equation coming into the individual. It's very important to understand that we have been given many different avenues up the Kundalini enlightenment mountain. We've been given it. You can do it. You don't have to use sex, because a lot of people are so uncomfortable with sex here in the West that well, I'll just do meditation instead. Fine. Meditation is an avenue, and so that's a good thing. Another avenue would be Shaktipat. Well, do the Shaktipat. Okay, that's fine. Maybe do meditation and the Shaktipat. Maybe do meditation, Tantra, and the Shaktipat. You'll know that I've been teaching Tantra for years. It's just lately I pulled back because, I get such a bad rep from people that, that don't agree with Tantric methodologies that I use, that I'm not following ancient texts of like the Rig Veda or some of the Hindu-based ancients like Sanatana, things of that nature, I pull straight from the Kundalini within me, straight from the Kundalini, and she teaches the people the tantric methodologies. And so lately, even though I have that Facebook group and I have a Yahoo group too that are based upon tantric and tantric methodologies, I sacrifice some of those teachings in lieu of attracting a larger audience. In other words, to give service and assistance to a larger audience of people that would not normally have an interest or a level of comfort within an awakening experience that involves sacred sexual technologies. And so, on the one hand, I do apologize for that, because I know that I am not, how do I say it? I am not allowing levels of information that could be useful to people that don't have sexual hang-ups to come to the fore, and I'm choosing to limit many of my teachings to those that do have sexual hang-ups. It sounds terrible, and maybe in a way it is, but I just have to. I feel compelled to give service to the many people that come this way, and perhaps as the books get published and I'm able to really feel a level of freedom within this technological West to give all levels of information, and in a way I've already done that. I don't know. I guess if you Google, my name right now, all kinds of crap gets pulled up, and that scares a lot of people away, and that scares legitimate Kundalini people away as well. And yet, other people don't get, sidetracked that way. So I'm kind of in a push me, pull you state right now, pushing me there and pulling me away, or pulling me there and pushing me away. And so we'll just see how my Shakti decides to let that manifest. And I guess there are no more questions for this program. For this program, really, though, I want you to really, really, really allow yourself to have a level of trust in the Kundalini, a level of magnificent, huge trust within your Kundalini equation, whether it involves sex or not. And I see that Santara is on the microphone here. And yes, my dear, what do you have to say?
I was going to ask you something about my own process, Chrism. I am trusting something, but I'll ask you about it. I have been having a lot of visions, waking visions, dreams, things like that. But what has been happening lately is that my eyesight was getting very bad. I would wake in the morning with very, very poor eyesight. And during the day, I would get this, I still do, I get this blurry, it's like a blurry curtain falls over my vision. So
well, I want you to have,
I know.
Stop. I want you to have that cornea checked.
I did. That's what I want to tell you. I did. Okay. I had everything checked because I wouldn't ignore something like that. So I had, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with anything. And I'm just wondering.
Okay. All right.
And so I'm saying, well, it's a Kundalini thing then, because it's definitely happening. Nothing shows up. It's a definite thing that's going on with my eye.
Okay. Well, may I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah. When the eyesight of the physical is being diminished, you are being asked to take yourself away from living your life by virtue of the physical expression of society. You're not allowed to read. You're not allowed to see in a clear way, and that's a communication to you that that placing your trust in the five senses and the ego fixation upon the five senses is a mistake within your Kundalini understanding. She is giving you, or you are being given a message to see beyond sight, to feel beyond tactility, to know beyond mentality. You are being forced into a level of visual acuity that goes beyond the physical by limiting your visual acuity, your physical visual acuity. This is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
Thank you. Yeah. It's kind of awesome because it is being forced. I hear you. I thank you. Yes. Okay. I feel a little bit uncomfortable about that, and I feel a little bit I'm going to pay attention to that, Chrism. Thank you.
Does your visual acuity eventually restore itself?
Yes, it does. Sometimes during it, I get a vision as well. You know, like it happened the other day. I'm sitting here, I'm looking out at the sea. The blurry thing comes down. I'm calling it the blurry curtain. And then I get this vision of a tornado coming in on top. And then there's other things happen. I am that landfall for the tornado, and I get some understandings about emotional stuff. And then
this
maybe 15 minutes. 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and then it lifts, but that does.
You just need to trust more.
It doesn't happen every time, Chrism. I do trust. I am trusting. That's the thing.
Yeah, trust more. Trust more.
Yeah.
Because
I will.
When it affects your sight, that's a big deal. I mean, that's what you need to drive a car with. That's what you need to even go up and down stairs with. That's what you need to look both ways before you cross the street with, or to read with, or to look in the eyes of your children with. So I understand your concern. But I also understand that this sounds far more of an energetic quality than a physical detrimental quality, right?
Yes, and after getting it checked out, that was I felt I had to do that, even though I was still trusting. I thought I needed to get it checked.
The retina is not detached, right?
Yeah, absolutely not. And they did all kinds of things to check. Yeah, everything is fine. And it has never happened while I've been driving or anything like that, Chrism. So it has never occurred in a situation that was dangerous. So that also, gave me to feel it was Kundalini taking control of that aspect,
Yeah. And it will do that. I mean, I don't know. It hasn't come up lately, but I know in a few programs ago, we're talking about how the Kundalini begins to limit the physical body expression. So for me, I could not use my right arm to save my life. I couldn't use my right arm, and I also could barely move my right fingers on my right hand, and I was used to taking care, taking my personal hygiene right-handed, tying my shoes, leading with the right hand. In the United States, we're very much right-handed oriented, to the point where doctors would even correct an infant's use of their left hand in order to make them right-handed. I mean, we're very, very much a right-handed culture. And my right hand just literally lost 70% of its mobility and dexterity, and I just had to surrender. So she, meaning Sacred Kundalini, she decided to do that. And the first thing that goes through your mind is like, oh my God, this is a medical issue. Oh my gosh, I must have a pinched nerve, or I must have some sort of a disease like multiple sclerosis, and my motor neurons are just not being able to function through the levels of masses of it. Oh my God, it's terrible. What am I going to do, right? And yet,
yeah, good effects there.
I laugh now, but let me tell you, I wasn't laughing then. And in my case, I can't afford to go to an MD. I can't afford to be seen by an ER. I can't afford to do any of these things. And so because she's got me so positioned in a way where I have to trust her. I have to. It is, and it's very similar to Brooke's situation, where she doesn't really have any other choice but to trust the Kundalini. And here you are, Brooke. I mean, you can echo this, can you not?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, you've been
totally
sequestered in such a way.
Sequestered, I was just going to say.
I mean, you're not allowed to see people. You're not allowed to visit with friends. You're not allowed to get a job. You're not allowed to get a romantic engagement going. You're not even allowed to visit family.
Well, yeah.
How many people have come out here have you visited with? I just want to know.
Well, since I've been here, none. Family, no. But
no.
I can do that. That's not really. I could do that, I think.
Well, you're going to do that with your father. I understand that, because he's, he needs to be helped by you. But for the most part, you have been put into a box.
Yeah, pretty much.
And this is the box. This is the box that I'm describing that I was in when my right arm decided it was just not going to work anymore. The Kundalini decided that for me. Have you had physical expressions that way for you yet, Brooke?
Oh, yeah, we spoke about that. I had that arm, the right arm was doing that similar thing that you had recently.
Oh, okay.
That's released a bit, so that's less intense. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I knew you could relate to it. That's why I brought you on board. I want to thank you for that. What?
I said, you're welcome.
Thank you for that, for backing me up on that. Very much. Thank you. So yeah, this is what can happen, and for you, Santara, I see that happening with your eyes. Let's see, where else did it happen? It can happen with your hearing as well. One ear can go totally out of phase, and it'll feel like a presence has moved over the right or the left ear, and you'll hear certain tonal qualities, but you won't hear very much of the physical anymore. And that happens.
Yeah, Chrism, and
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens as well, and also an extreme ability, or you can hear the clock ticking on the electric watch at the other side of the room.
Yes.
Things become
the
so
same thing
pronounced.
can happen with your eyes too. Your eyes can go from being very, very blurry to being able to zoom in on a fly on a park bench at a distance. I've had that happen
before too. Like a blade of grass in the field as you drive in the car and you see it. Yeah. I've forgotten that. Okay. Yeah.
So all's well with your eyesight.
Yeah.
Fair certain of that. But it's a level of trust. And that's a severe level because, we're a visually oriented culture. And to lose your eyesight is to lose a big, big portion of your engagement into this culture. And, you're not losing it. It's just blurring up, and she's giving you very, very specific instruction. It's the same with me. When my right hand froze up, she wanted me doing things with my left, and so I did. And that had a balancing effect for my physical expression. And I think it did with Brooke as well, although she may still be within that to a certain degree. So, yeah. Okay, so I want to you're very welcome. You're very welcome, Santara. And I want to open up questions from the chat group as well. And I see Mary Jean is typing. And let me see if I covered all of the, I think I covered all of the questions that are currently in the chat room. I would like to say, here we go. And Mary Jean says, my eyes went through a lot of changes, sometimes blurry, and progressively over years, my eyesight has improved immensely. So there you have it, folks. There you have it. I would like to thank everybody who has called in. That would be Brooke, and that would be Joey. Hello, Joey. and that would be Elizabeth and of course, my co-host, Centara. I would like to thank everybody in the chat room. And I would like to thank everybody who is listening to this program in the future, in the archives. And I'm going to open it up to you, Centara, for some last words.
I don't have any, Chrism, really. No last words. Just thank you for the show. Thank everybody for being here. And I look forward to the same time next week again. Good night from here.
Okay. And I would like to say that within the Tantric teachings, the Kundalini will also take certain mechanisms away from the individual, such as a libido or an interest or things of that nature. And it's natural. Nothing is wrong. And just kind of go with that flow. Don't try to resist it. Don't try to get yourself stimulative if she has taken away your libido. Just go with that for the time being. And I'm going to go ahead and end the show the way I've started it. And I'd like to once again thank Brooke and Joey, Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez, Laranya, and Centara, and everybody in the chat room. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode. And I look forward to seeing you and hearing you next week.